Hello there, my crafty friends. It's Ashley Pfeiffer, the maker behind Stamped AF. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Canada, and this month for the Global Stampin' Video Hop, we are doing easy blending. And while the blending may be easy, the impact is huge. So I have used one of the Love You Always treat boxes, and we've got a little action wobble on here. I'm feeling like the front might be a little too plain, but just hold on. So we've got Happy Easter on the side. There's nothing on the end. We've got Easter is a lovely reminder of new beginnings with that adorable little chick and the butterfly. And then when we turn it around and we push or pull, we've got that adorable little bunny that pops up. We've got some mini eggs on the inside, and it's just the cutest darn thing, isn't it? So let me show you how I created this. Let's get our craft on. So I'm gonna leave this here so you can see. Now, we've got our Love You Always treat box, and I will show you how to assemble this. I'm sure you've seen it before, but we don't need it yet. So I'm going to set that aside. And we're going to start with our piece of basic white thick cardstock. This is how we're creating that sleeve. So it is 4 1/8 by 9. And we're going to score it only on the 9-inch side. We'll remove that cutting blade. We are going to score it at 1 5/8, and I'm sorry to get 8ths and 16ths involved, but if you want this sleeve to fit snugly, it's necessary. So we've got 1 5/8, 4 3/8. So we've got 1, 2, 3 eighths, and then we're doing 5 and 15 16ths, and I'm sorry to get that going, but it's only one tick away from 6. And then for the 8 and 11 16ths, I just want to show you something, because when you look at an inch, so we've got an 1/8, we've got a 1/4, and that's 4 16ths, 8 16ths, 12 16ths. So 11 16ths is just one tick away from the 3/4 inch mark. So they're really not that bad. And like I said, if you want this to fit snugly, it's necessary. Oh, I almost scored it at the wrong spot. 8 and 11 16ths. I thought that looked funny. So if you end up with a spot where you scored it that shouldn't be there, you can always come back and give it a little score on the other side, or you can just kind of burnish it with your finger. Now, this is going to be the bottom, so it's not a big deal. I'm going to bring out some grid paper because I'm gonna get messy. Well, my desk is. So when we look at what we've scored here, this is the bottom. So this tucks into that little piece there. The part that I misscored is the bottom. Then we've got this panel, and this panel. So this is where we're cutting out our happy, but we're not going to do that quite yet. And this die is from the So Much Happy bundle. So there's so many great things in this bundle, and my stamps just don't stick. I stuck them right to the case and they've just lost all of their stick. So when I made this originally, I used my DIY masks. So before we had a fun cloud die in this bundle, I just hand cut this, and I've been using it for years, and you can tell it was just a scrap of paper. But now we've got this cloud die that's in the So Much Happy bundle. So I went ahead and die cut this. This is a piece of basic white thick. So you can see that it matches there, and it's longer than the card base, which is awesome. It means you don't have to like maneuver. And then for my grass, when we had that wiggle worm bundle, I die cut this, and I've been using it as a mask. Now, I will tell you the reason I don't want to do that this time is because it was a little tricky covering it with these flowers and my blends. So, and this is retired, so if you don't have it, you're kind of hooped. Now, there is a bundle that has grass. However, I don't have it. I'm planning on getting it. I'm sure it's going to retire when we get our list. But you can make just a cute little hillside, and this one is from the Winter Woods bundle, but there's a few sets that you could create a little hillside from. Shark Frenzy has a little short one, which you would have to maneuver. Quite Curvy has one, but there's a bunch of dots in it, and I just wanted a straight hillside. So I went ahead, I've got a little bit of snail on here, but before I start blending, we could use Post-it notes to mask, or we can use my favorite, which is still Post-it brand. I get it from my local office supply store. I'm going to put this right at the top of that line because I don't want to have a little white line, which I think I might have just done, but that's okay. And then I'm going to cover up here because I don't want my sky to extend to that other panel. Now, if I don't want this going anywhere beyond, then I'll just cover that too. So to do our hillside, we could go like that, except that we'd be inking our sky. So we need to turn this upside down, and let's just find a nice hill. I don't want this to go too high, so I'm just going to do kind of a little subtle hill. And I am using Granny Apple Green. That is one of my favorites for grass. Just using my new ink blending brushes. Who else loves these? I always start off of my project. I don't want to end up with like a weird little smudge or anything. And you don't have to press very hard. Remember, there's a little bit of Stampin' Seal on here, so it will stick. So there is our adorable little hillside. Perfect for our Easter basket. And then with my dedicated blue blending brush, I do not have a different blending brush for each color. Each color family has its own brush. So reds and pinks, yellows, oranges, blues, greens, purples, and then I have one that's like gray neutral. So when I'm doing clouds, I don't tape these ones down, I just hold it. And I like to start with the top and work my way down. There's no right or wrong, it's just my preference. And I'm using Pool Party. So my top one is always going to be my darkest. And I will work my way down. So there's my gorgeous clouds. Now I want to turn it because I don't want to have my clouds coming down, 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 down. I want them to be different, not be predictable. So I still have ink on my brush. I'm going to take this, and I don't want to obliterate the clouds that I just did, so I'm going to stay closer to the edge than anywhere else. And if I want it to be darker, I can just keep working at it. I can add some more ink, but I tend to just go with what's on my brush. So you can just see that. I can put it right back where it was and do some more. It's too light. There's not enough of a difference between the two. So just keep working at it. And usually I don't have such a small space to work with. I'm going to add a little bit more ink. Usually I would have a few rows of clouds, and they wouldn't be quite so close together. Because I'm basically painting those other ones. So I think I probably have room for one more, and I'm just going to do it like that. You don't need to come all the way down to your horizon. Okay, so that's good. Let me bring it up so you can see. Adorable, isn't it? So now I can take off my Post-it tape, and I find whenever I'm pulling any kind of masking, anything, washi tape, Post-it tape, I like to pull it against itself. It's less likely to tear, but again, this is Post-it tape. It's not super sticky. So pull it back against itself, go slowly, because if it does start to rip, you want to stop and readjust. So we've got our perfect line there. I'll show you the next one. What we can do now is bring in our happy die and cut that. I want to make sure that there's the same amount on both ends. I want to make sure that there's about an equal distance on both sides, because this right here is what we're going to adhere to this little piece. We don't have a lot of room. So if we don't leave ourselves a big enough space there, it's going to be pretty darn tricky to close. So while I have my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, I'm also going to Oh, I was going to say I was also going to die cut this, but I already did. I had an oval from a previous project. It's never wasted. There was still the release paper on there, so just going to run this through. Now, this kind of goes against everything that we know. Usually when you have a wide die like this, you want to turn it on an angle so that your roller isn't going over the whole thing at one time. But because this die is nearly 6 inches wide, we have to put it in straight. If we put it in crooked, our project is going to get mangled. So now I've got my purple tape on here that I want to pull ever so gently. Don't want to rip my very small space that I have to work with. I definitely don't want to rip my blended background. If you end up with any adhesive left over on your ink, just take an adhesive eraser. You can get these at the Dollar Tree and just wipe it off there. Okay. So there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp this. This was actually kind of an afterthought. I looked at it again before I started recording today and I thought there's something missing. Like, it's great that we have all this on the top and this on the side and then you open it, but I thought this is kind of a missed opportunity if we don't do anything on the side. So I've got my sentiment, which is Easter is a lovely reminder of new beginnings. I'm using basic gray ink. I'm just going to stamp that in the middle. But I felt like the sentiment just wasn't enough. So we've got that. We're going to stamp our little chick. And this is another thing that's going to go against everything we know. I am going to color with my Stampin' Blends using regular Stampin' ink, water-based ink. You can do that. I do it often. You just have to be sure that you're not staying in any one area too long because your ink will run. Okay, so we'll let that sit for a couple of minutes. And now what we can do is we can put on our little flowers on the front, which might look completely out of scale now, but that's okay. We're going to stamp another butterfly kind of up in the clouds here. And I think this time I'm going to color them different. I kind of made it seem like that butterfly was traveling over there, but it doesn't have to be the same butterfly. So now we'll grab the two little flowers. We've got just a little bloom and then a tulip. And again, we will use the basic gray for that. We want them as close to the line as we can get. Now, because I am recording, my head isn't where it would normally be when I'm crafting. My voice is probably super loud right now. I think this one will put up on that hillside. I know that the scale might look a little funny, but it's paper crafting. It doesn't have to look 100% real. So let's set that aside. I've got a scrap of basic white. We're going to stamp our Easter basket and our bunny. Those are the only two that we have to fussy cut. And I'm sorry to introduce fussy cutting, but it's a necessary evil. A stamping friend and I we had a virtual class the other day, and she said she wants a shirt that says fussy cutting is my favorite F word. And I'm gonna make a shirt that says that. I hope she doesn't see this because spoiler alert. Okay, so I believe that's all the stamping we've got. I'll let those sit for a moment. We can go back to our wrap and do that. I'll clean up all my mess later. We'll let both of these sit for a couple of minutes and I will show you how to assemble this box. I know there's so many demonstrators using it, so the sleeve is just so easy. All you have to do is pop it up. The box, I know when I open mine, I'm like, what in the world is this? So basically you want to fold and burnish all of these score lines and you want to fold them in. I had to watch a Stampin' Up! Video to figure out how to put these together. They are not the most intuitive box, but OMG, are they cute, aren't they? Okay, so now all these tabs are going to go on the inside. And I know we only have two hands, but fold your tabs in, bring your sides in, and you want to hold that down. This piece is kind of getting in the way. fold that piece down, and then we're going to take this one that's closest to me right now. We're going to push that in, and that will keep those sides down. I'm so sorry about the shadows. Okay, so I've turned it around. Now all we have to do is push this in, and you can see it just locks into that little notch. So there we go. So while we have this, let's go ahead and do our insert. Like I said, I did have a little bit of cardstock. Felt like the DSP wasn't going to be strong enough to hold this. So let's add some liquid glue. You could probably use Stampin' Seal or Plus tear and tape. We're just going to add that there, and you could leave a mat on it. It's just for the extra support. And of course, Purple Posy is retiring very soon, so I have a bunch of it to use. So this is for our side. This is going to go behind the happy, and I may need to trim it a little bit. I have a piece of window sheet here, and this, it doesn't really matter how long or how wide it is. This is, I've scored it at 1 inch, and it is, you could have it at 1 inch. Mine is probably about 7/8, 3.5. So 1 inch by 3.5 inches scored at 1 inch. So we're going to put some tear and tape on both sides of this. I wouldn't recommend anything but tear and tape here. I'm going to put one along the bottom outside, one on the bottom inside, and this is going to get attached right to our box. So I'm going to take the top off first, and I find my take your pick tool is the easiest way to get that release paper off. Okay, so we're going to put that in there. Going to add some glue here, stick that in, and the measurements for this DSP and the cardstock will be in the description below. I'm scared I'm going to give you the wrong dimensions, so we'll just have it in there. And now we need one more piece of tear and tape, and we're not going to peel the release paper off this one yet because this is where our little bunny is going to go. But while we have it out, we might as well do it. Okay, so that part is ready. We can put that back in there if we'd like. Just push that down. Can't forget our mini eggs. I've got a bag over there. So now let's do some coloring. I'm going to bring my grid paper back in, and I want to say that this was Just Jade, but when I started using Just Jade last time, it wasn't right. But I am going to use the colors that are on the mini eggs bag, basically. Now, I know that probably looks more like Granny Apple Green, but the green mini eggs are more of a Just Jade. So I've got Just Jade, Purple Posy, Highland Heather was just a little bit too dark, Rococo Rose, Balmy Blue, Daffodil Delight, and then I've got Light Basic Gray for the bunny, and I've got Soft Suede Light and Dark for the basket. I was going to say I didn't stamp the basket, but it's over there. So let's start. Let's do our butterfly. So I'm going to speed through this part. Now that I've told you what the colors are, you'll see me do them. And if you have any questions, you can just email me, stampedaf@gmail.com. This tulip is quite hard to stay within the line, so if you're not comfortable, use your Stampin' Right marker. And I'm stopping here because I want to show you that the way that I've colored this chick to get the most impact is I've used Light Mango Melody to outline. And it's another little one, but this one is just so worth it. So outline it in Light Mango Melody, and then bring in the Light So Saffron, and it's just the perfect blends of yellows. Leaves you a nice shadow and doesn't just get lost. And then for the beak, I just use the bullet tip of my pumpkin pie. But again, if you're not comfortable, just use your Stampin' Right marker because those fine tip ends are a lot finer than this. So I am going to do this butterfly different. And I used Highland Heather the first time. Purple Posy is significantly lighter. But let's use Balmy Blue. I don't want to introduce a new color. I want to keep the color palette as is. So I just outline the butterfly, do the body. And I know these are all very small images for blending, but like the theme, it's easy blending. So then I just come in with my dark Daffodil Delight and add some dots. Okay, so that is the outside all done. Now we can color our bunny and our eggs. So there are actually no purple mini eggs. There's blue, yellow, pink, and green. So I'm going to color it in the same order I colored last time because I did put some thought into that. I had tried a couple different ways and I felt like this way was the most pleasing to the eye. And if you find that it isn't blending nice, just come back in and add a couple dots. And I know we've all heard there's no wrong way to blend. We've been taught to start with light, come in with dark, go back in with light. And I don't know about you, I am finding that I'm always running out of light first. So I've been watching some coloring videos lately, and one of the ones that I watched said, start with your dark. You don't need to flood it with your light. Start with your dark and blend it right away. And then you will go through your markers at the same rate. I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, it was one thing when we could purchase them individually, but now that we have to purchase them as a pack, I have so many extra dark ones compared to light. So that is what I'm gonna do. So again, just add some dots if you're finding that it doesn't blend quite the way you would like, because these areas are so small, you can't keep coming back and working it because it will just bleed right out of that line. We really have one shot to make this blend. Otherwise, it's going to bleed right out. One, because we've used basic gray instead of Memento, and two, because it's such a tiny little area. The paper can't possibly hold more ink than that. So for the basket, I just went simple. I colored the little bands using my dark softs way to put in a dot where each of the little lines are. I don't know if you can see, the artist gave us some of those. Now, I would suggest working one row at a time so I can come in and cover that with my brush tip. It was a lot easier to do when I was not recording, but do one row at a time and you'll get a nice blend. If you try and do the whole thing and then come back and blend it, you're gonna end up with a hot mess. So one row at a time. I know it's kind of a pain for such a small little basket, but it does end up becoming the focal point of our project. So take that little bit of extra time, or if it doesn't bother you, just do what you want to do. It is your project. Now, I think to save time, I'm just going to leave the markers open because that's just taking too much time and you don't have all day here, right? If you've made it this far, thank you. So that brush tip is just the right amount for this basket. And then I'm going to go in, and this is just extra, it's me being me, go in and add a little spot where the basket is like crossing over. And you could always come in just with a Stampin' Write marker and add these little touches, because it is a very small area to work with. Okay, so there is our basket, finito. And then for our little bunny, we're just gonna do a couple flowers. I'm gonna open this up so I can see what I did, not reinvent the wheel. I'm not going to do her cheeks the way I did. I tried something and I don't like it. Okay, so I am going to do 2 Rococo Rose flowers. Who else is going to desperately miss this color? Actually, that was the light. Who else is going to miss it? We don't have another pink like this. I'm so going to miss it. So this is what I used for her cheeks, but like I said, I tried a different technique and I didn't love it. So I'm just doing those 2 little dots. I'll do Daffodil Delight is just going to be the center of each flower. I'm going to do one Balmy Blue and one Purple Posy. And you can see I'm just putting little dots and then coming back in and filling it in. They really did not give us a lot of room to work with on this one. The other in color I'm going to miss desperately in this collection is Seaside Spray. I like Pretty Peacock, but I mean, Seaside Spray is just such a beautiful blue. Thank goodness we have Balmy Blue. And I think at the point that you're watching this, demonstrators will know what those new in colors are going to be, and the retired list will already be out. So it's a very exciting week at Stampin' Up. But at the point that I'm recording this, we don't know any of that. I mean, we know that the new catalog PDF and the retiring list are coming out, but we don't know the details. So if you have ever thought of joining Stampin' Up, now is a great time because you can add pre-order items to your starter kit. You select everything in your starter kit, and because we are now in pre-order, you can add those items, and then you will get a 20% discount on all your future orders, as long as you stay active. And 20 is the minimum. You can go up to 25, and then if you have a team, you can get more, and it's just so wonderful. So all I'm doing here is lightening up my smoky slate. I really wish we had like a super light gray, but we don't. So I'm just coming in with my color lifter and lightening it up. Okay, so that is it. Now all I have to do is clean up this mess. I'm going to fussy cut, but I'm not going to go, I'll speed through that part for you. So there's no way that I'm cutting out that middle part. It's just not worth it. No way, Jose. So now we can bring back our, whoops, don't want to score that part. We can bring back in our sleeve. And look, you can barely tell that that didn't go in the right spot. Ah! Yes, that's right. That's right. The die left a little bit of a line and I'm like, no, it's in the wrong spot. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to glue those two. They fit like a glove, but we're not going to do it yet. I want to do it around the box just to be on the safe side. I'm going to tuck this guy back in, bring in our other one, and our window sheet is on there. So now we can peel this off. And if you've followed me for any time, you know that my videos aren't normally this long, but this one just had to be. Actually, this doesn't need to be that high up. She can be right at the bottom there. Now that I've made a mess, let's take this whole piece off. So we'll keep that on there, but she doesn't need to be like floating up in midair, because the higher she is, the more you have to tuck her down. So let's put that on there. It's kind of bold putting the turn tape on without measuring it, but that's how I roll. So just push that down, and now we'll hold her up. We want to tuck that little bit of ground there in. You want to make sure that all the acetate is covered, or not quite so obvious. I've got a little bump in there, but whatever. If you're being really picky, you could just cut off that little bit of excess. I know I said it didn't matter how wide it was, but all was wrong. Okay, so we're going to put those mini eggs in there. I'm going to push her down. And now we are ready to assemble. And I did not glue this down. The only part that is glued is this part here. But like I said, kind of a snug fit on this one. Like I said, because we put that Easter down, this isn't going to slide. If you want it to slide, don't put the Easter there on foam adhesive because that's what prevents it from sliding. We're gonna take this piece here, and I told you I might need to take a little bit off, so if you can see, it's like 1/8 of an inch too long or too wide. So right now it is 1 5/8. So let's just take it down to 1 1/2. And no one's gonna see this. They're not gonna see if it is wonky. Take a little bit of liquid glue, put that on. And so far, this is the only part that's been adhered right to the outside of the box. Of course, we've got that DSP on the inside. The score line looks like it's just a little bit off. Okay, so now we're gonna hold this on. We're gonna put some glue on that bottom scored piece. And we're gonna push and hold. Tombow takes a few seconds to set, and you don't want to just put this down and set it and forget it. Give it a good chance to settle in there. So all that's left now is to put our little basket on, and I'm going to use an action wobble, but if you can see, there's that little bit of white around the die, and I don't know about you, but that drives me crazy. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to hold it right on there, but I'm going to decide where the grass goes on here, and I'm just going to color it in with my Stampin' Blend marker. This is my light Granny Apple Green. Super awkward to be doing it in the air like this. But then it's not so obvious. So because we have a hill, it needs to go up higher on that side. But do you see what I mean? Now it doesn't look like it was fussy cut or die cut. It's just, it matches the background. And whenever I use action wobbles, I always think I have it on backwards. I don't think there is a wrong way, but I did notice that by putting like the full thick side on the object itself, it doesn't wobble very much. So we're going to put this part on the box itself, and I'll show you the difference. I get these from Amazon. It's the mini action wobbles. Now, I would recommend putting the sticky piece on the object itself first. We don't want to mount this in the wrong spot since I've colored it already. Okay, so now I'm going to lay it down, and I want it to mimic that hillside. And if it's not exact, it's okay. But look, that wobbles so much more. So make sure that you put the wider base on the bottom and the smaller open part on the top. Because look, you can hear that one doesn't wobble. I mean, a little bit, but that one really wobbles. So thick on the bottom, thin on top. That makes sense? Anyways, I hope that you love that. I would love to know which version you prefer, the one with the Just Jade grass, which looks a little bit too dark now, or the Granny Apple hillside. Let me know which one you love, and if you make this, I would love to see your creation. You can tag me on Facebook or Instagram. You can email it to me. You can send it through Facebook Messenger. I would love to see it, and I thank you so much. This is perhaps one of the longest videos I've ever done. Even once the editing is done, I'm sure it'll be a long one. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon, my crafty friends. Bye.